Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the FUNimation dub of episode 125 of Dragonball Super. We begin this episode with Goku in Super Saiyan Blue form combined with the Kaioken and Vegeta in Super Saiyan Blue evolution form continuing to fight Jiren. Eventually, Goku grabs Jiren and Vegeta launches a final flash towards Jiren, but Jiren is able to deflect the final flash and break free from Goku's hold. Vegeta notices that Jiren doesn't seem to be tired at all, and Goku says something along the lines about how it goes to show that Jiren is incredibly powerful. Krillin becomes nervous when he sees that Goku and Vegeta's attacks aren't really affecting Universe 11's most powerful mortal, but Gohan is confident that his dad and Vegeta can still win, and this helps calm Krillin down. Beerus takes a chance to praise Gohan's efforts during the Tournament of Power, and Beerus even calls Gohan by his name. This leads to Gohan bowing to Universe 7's destroyer and thanking him for the praise. After a brief break, Goku and Vegeta continue the fight against Jiren. Meanwhile, we see Android 17 is continuing to fight Top. Android 17 notices that there's roughly 6 minutes left in the Tournament of Power when he looks at the pillar for a moment. So Android 17 begins to launch a great number of energy blasts towards Top. Top inquires Android 17 if he, Android 17, really thinks that the power of these energy blasts will be enough to defeat him, Top. But Android 17 responds by acknowledging, he knows these energy blasts aren't powerful enough to defeat Top, but he says something along the lines about how this is only the beginning. Piccolo also brings up what Top brought up not too long ago. Piccolo brings up that Android 17's energy blasts aren't really landing any finishing blows against Top, and Android 18 responds by bringing up that she and her twin brother both have infinite energy, and Android 18 pieces together that Android 17 is simply trying to stall Top until the time limit runs out. Eventually, though, Top manages to find an opening to escape from Android 17's barrage of energy blasts, and Top also manages to interrupt Android 17's attack. Top then launches a giant energy blast towards Android 17. Android 17, though, is able to counter with his own giant energy blast, so this leads to a beam struggle happening. Top is starting to gain the advantage in the beam struggle, and this also leads to Android 17 getting pushed closer towards the edge of the arena. But then Top loses his concentration when Frieza, who is still in his ultimate form, or golden form if you prefer, blasts him in the back. Frieza continues to launch a series of death beams towards Top, and he's continuously mocking Top and Top's belief in justice, or that's along the lines of Frieza's insults anyway. And this leads to Android 17 gaining the advantage in the beam struggle. Eventually, Frieza launches a larger energy blast towards Top's back, and this leads to Android 17 winning the beam struggle. Krillin responds to this by saying something along the lines about how Frieza was already strong to begin with, but now his power has increased to a very dramatically scary extent. Or yes, Frieza was always powerful, but now he's even more powerful, and it's very scary how powerful Frieza has become. That's along the lines of what Krillin says. Back in the arena, we see that Top is actually still in the arena. He hasn't fallen off the arena yet. But he's collapsed to the ground, and Frieza takes the chance to stand in front of Top, and he continues to mock the leader of the Pride Troopers. But then Top is starting to stand up, and his shirt has fallen off because of the damage from the energy blast. So, the energy blast caused enough damage to Top's shirt that it ripped off, or it fell off from being ripped up so much. And Frieza takes another chance to mock Top about this. He mockingly says it's a shame that Top's nifty uniform has been ripped up. I think Frieza actually did call it a nifty uniform, at least in the Funimation dub. But Top responds that he considers justice to be irrelevant now, and he begins to power up. So back with the fight with Goku and Vegeta working together against Jiren, that fight stops when all three of the fighters sense Top powering up. And Jiren says something along the lines about how Top has made his decision or made up his mind. Beerus and Shin are both surprised because Top's energy signature is starting to feel like divine energy, and Vermad comments to himself along the lines about how the time is right for a certain power to be revealed. So eventually, we see Top's power-up has finished. Or yes, Top finishes powering up, and we see that his appearance has changed a bit. He's become more muscular, and he looks taller now. Some fans have jokingly said that the Lorax didn't skip leg day this time. But besides that, some other changes are a symbol has appeared on Top's chest now. This symbol is the same symbol that's on Vermad's belt. Top's eyes are now purple, and we see that there's a purple aura surrounding Top now, too. Kay and Vermad comment along the lines, Kay and Vermad bring up the old saying about how desperate times call for desperate measures, and they say this applies with Universe 11 being dangerously close to being erased from existence. Frieza, though, is still not impressed with how Top looks now after powering up, but Android 17 at least seems to be more cautious about Top's new appearance. Frieza launches a death beam towards Top, but it doesn't affect the leader of the Pride Troopers, and Beerus realizes that Top now has the powers of a destroyer. Kay and Vermad reveal that Top is actually being trained to be the next destroyer of Universe 11. And Universe 11's Angel Assistant comments along the lines about how they're about to see the results of Top's training with Universe 11's Angel Assistant for the position of destroyer. Vermad adds that Top isn't really any different from a destroyer by this point in time, Vermad says something along the lines about how because Top has made up his mind or made his decision or has accepted the position, Top isn't really any different from other destroyers. That's along the lines of what Vermad says anyway. Despite hearing all of this, Frieza still thinks that Top gaining the powers of a destroyer won't make a difference against his own ultimate form, or his golden form, if you prefer. And Top launches a Hakai ball towards Frieza. Frieza remembers when he first saw the Hakai ball. Frieza remembers seeing the Hakai ball before. The first time Frieza saw it was while fighting the Universe 9 assassins just before the Tournament of Power started. And Frieza thinks that he can stop this Hakai ball with one hand. But Frieza quickly realizes that he underestimated the Hakai ball, and he becomes overpowered by it. And the results of Frieza being overpowered by the Hakai ball causes a giant explosion. There are energy barriers around the spectator seats and the Omni King's platform to protect all of those characters from this explosion. Once the explosion is done, we see that the sky has changed color now. It looks like it's blue and purple, and the arena has been split in half. Although there are also some smaller pieces of rubble floating around besides the two big halves of the arena. Top says that he knows Android 17 is hiding in some is hiding behind some nearby rubble, and he tells Android 17 to come out because there's no point in hiding. Android 17 admits that he was hoping to ambush the leader of the Pride Troopers, but then he questions if that makes him, Android 17, unjust. Top, though, responds by saying that he is beyond the concept of justice and evil. Top says that the concept of being and the absence of being are all that matter to him now. Although Top is still surprised when Android 17 actually agrees with Top's sentiments. But after that brief exchange, Top begins to attack Android 17. We see that Top's energy blasts are able to crack Android 17's energy barrier this time around, and Android 17's energy blasts don't really affect Top either. Beerus explains to Krillin that Top can choose to surround himself with destruction energy, and that's what's making the attacks towards Top ineffective. Android 17 tries to launch multiple energy blasts at Top while jumping around the arena at a very fast pace, but that still proves to be ineffective. And Android 17 manages to avoid another Hakai Ball shortly afterwards. Top launches another Hakai Ball, and Android 17 is able to avoid it. After seeing this recent Hakai Ball, Beerus realizes that Top needs time to charge his attacks that are made from destruction energy. So this leads to Krillin thinking that maybe the time Top takes to charge those attacks, Krillin thinks that could be an opening to attack Top. But Gohan brings up that Top could still surround himself with destruction energy, which would make that opening ineffective, or it really wouldn't be an opening because Top could just surround himself with destruction energy. After that, Top begins to chase Android 17 around the arena, and Android 17 is trying to figure out what he can do now to defeat the leader of the Pride Troopers. Eventually, Top corners Android 17, and he's preparing another Hakai Ball, but a piece of rubble is thrown at the Hakai Ball, and we see that the rubble was thrown by none other than Frieza. Frieza is back in the regular version of his final form, and the scene shows Frieza in the same pose he was in when he was shown to have survived the Spirit Bomb back in Dragon Ball Z's Frieza saga. Top is impressed that Frieza survived that earlier Hakai Ball, and Frieza launches a Death Ball towards Top, but Top launches a small Hakai Ball, and it's really small, like it's small enough where Top just flicks the small Hakai Ball towards the Death Ball, and it does destroy the Death Ball. And then Top proceeds to attack Frieza, and eventually Top is lifting Frieza up by his head. He's grabbed Frieza by the head, and he's lifting him up like this. And Top comments about how he could easily erase Frieza from existence, but he doesn't want to get disqualified from the tournament. Top then uses Frieza's earlier comments against Frieza, and he drops Frieza to the ground, and then he kicks him off the arena. But Android 17 throws a piece of rubble towards Frieza, so this causes Frieza to land on a different part of the arena, although Android 17's response is that his hand slipped. That's what Android 17 says when it's revealed he kept Frieza in the arena. Top praises Android 17 for still participating in the tournament for this long, or at least for still participating in the tournament against him, Top. Top compliments Android 17 for his persistence, but Top also says that it's pointless for Android 17 to try and defeat him now. Android 17 responds that he can still defeat Top as long as he's still standing, or that's along the lines of what he says anyway. So Android 17 and Top are both charging their own energy blasts, and they do launch their respective energy blasts towards each other. The narrator reveals that 5 minutes are left in the Tournament of Power, and that is how we end this episode. So this episode focuses on the second to last opponent that the 7th Universe team have to defeat during the Tournament of Power. And given who the last two opponents are at this point in time, Jiren and Top, it makes perfect sense that Top would be the second to last opponent, because Jiren is Universe 11's most powerful mortal, and the Universe Survival Saga has been building up Jiren to be the final boss of the saga, so it would make sense that Top would be the second to last opponent between the two. And it's also worth bringing up again that Top is the second most powerful mortal of Universe 11. So while Jiren is more powerful, Top still isn't exactly slacking in the power department. We do know that Top is also the leader of the Pride Troopers, which is also a testament to his power when compared to most of the other Pride Troopers. And this episode also does reveal a pretty important detail. Top is actually being trained to be Universe 11's next destroyer after Vermod, or Vermod's successor for the position of destroyer in Universe 11. So this actually explains why Top was with the divine beings of Universe 11 during the Zeno Expo. Although I guess I should also bring up that there were some supplementary material. I should also bring up that some supplementary material that was released around the time when the Universe Survival Saga started in Japan did reveal that Top was being trained to become the next destroyer of Universe 11. We do see how the position of destroyer, or Top embracing the powers of a destroyer, has really changed his demeanor. Throughout most of the tournament, Top continuously talked about justice still. Although there were a few times where Top's beliefs in justice were wavering a bit, he still talked about justice quite a bit. But here, you could say, yes, this was the moment where this was the straw that broke the camel's back. Yeah, you could say this episode was the straw that broke the camel's back with regards to Top's beliefs in justice. Top had thrown his beliefs in justice away so he could embrace the powers of a destroyer for the sake of Universe 11 surviving. That really shows you just how serious the situation is, because Top's demeanor has changed dramatically. Top's demeanor had changed dramatically. And some fans actually started to sympathize with Top in this episode, or this episode really led to some fans sympathizing with Top, because some fans do feel that Top acted like an obnoxious jerk earlier in the saga, and I do agree Top was kind of an obnoxious jerk. He is genuinely a hero to Universe 11, but his demeanor could kind of irritate some people, and I can't say I blame some people for being irritated by Top's demeanor. He did act like an obnoxious jerk because he was one of those characters that jumped on the Blame Goku bandwagon. He was one of those characters that treated Goku like a scapegoat over the universes being destroyed, even though it's been established that Goku's reminder to Zeno about the tournament actually ended up being a good thing, compared to what would have happened if Goku didn't remind Zeno about the tournament. So it was pretty obnoxious how Top jumped on that bandwagon, acting like an ungrateful jerk towards Goku. But the way Frieza was mocking Top throughout this episode, it was pretty low of Frieza to do that. So yeah, even though Top acted really obnoxious, it's not hard to sympathize with Top after the way Frieza mocked him. And some fans admitted it was very cathartic to see Frieza pay for his arrogance when Top embraced the powers of a destroyer and began to attack Frieza. Now, I guess I should bring this up. Some fans found it surprising that Top could still participate in the Tournament of Power after awakening the powers of a destroyer, because we've seen that the fighters for the Tournament of Power have all been mortals of their respective universes. So I know some fans have wondered, shouldn't Top be disqualified now that he has the powers of a destroyer? And, well, I guess they don't really spell it out exactly, but my interpretation of why Top is still allowed to participate is because he's not the official destroyer of Universe 11. True, Vermod and Jiren had commented along the lines about how Top had accepted the position. Those were some words that they used at some points, or they said he made up his mind or made up his decision. But at the same time, it still seemed like Vermad's position, yes, Vermad being a destroyer didn't seem to be affected by Top awakening the powers of a destroyer. So even though they said Top accepted the position, I'm more inclined to go with the belief that Top isn't officially the destroyer of Universe 11. So that's why, so I think of it more along the lines of it's a loophole. So I guess you could say it's similar to how Goku and Vegeta are mortals, but they're using divine energy. That's pretty much how I view the situation with Top. He's using divine energy, but he's not the official destroyer of Universe 11. That's my way of reasoning for why Top can still participate in the tournament. So yeah, that's just, and some other fans do agree with those sentiments too. That's how some fans have reasoned why Top can still participate in the tournament, even though he has the powers of a destroyer. And yes, the insight that Top is being trained to be the next destroyer of Universe 11 does help to give us a little more insight about the process of becoming a destroyer. Although we have seen some of that training actually with the way Whis was training Goku and Vegeta. Although in fairness, Goku and Vegeta aren't really interested in the position of destroyer. They just wanted to train with Whis for the sake of growing stronger. Although some fans do think that Whis probably is still hoping that they might change their mind still. But some fans did admit it would have been interesting to see someone who actually was interested in becoming a destroyer, see that training. And I would have liked to have seen some flashbacks that show Top's training with Universe 11's Angel Assistant, if only for that difference, because Top actually is interested in becoming a destroyer, unlike Goku and Vegeta. But it was still cool to give us a little more insight about about the process of becoming a destroyer. And this helps to go along with what was established earlier in Dragon Ball Super, how it goes to show that destroyers were born mortals, but they become gods later on, rather than being divine by birth like the Kais, both the lower Kais and the Supreme Kais, and the angels are also divine by birth too. So it shows how the destroyers are similar to the Guardians. They're gods that were born mortals. We saw that with how the destroyers, besides Beerus and Champa being brothers, were all different species. And again, the way how Whis was hoping Goku and Vegeta would become destroyers eventually, or how Whis was hoping that either Goku or Vegeta would be Beerus' successor for the position of destroyer in Universe 7. And here, with the revelation that Top is being trained to be Universe 11's next destroyer, it pretty much tells us that, yeah, destroyers are born mortals, but they do receive the position of a god through their training. So it was cool to have a little more insight on the position of a destroyer, and how the destroyer position is similar to the guardian position, but also different from other god positions like the Kais, lower Kais, and Supreme Kais, and other divine beings like the angels. So besides that, it makes sense that Top wouldn't be defeated in this episode. I did expect that Top would take more than one episode to defeat, considering how he is the second most powerful mortal of Universe 11. And after he's awakened the powers of a destroyer, it's going to be harder to defeat Top. So we'll eventually see how Top is defeated within the last few episodes. We only have a few episodes of the saga left, yes, it shouldn't be too long before Top is defeated. Those who've watched the sub version, or at least read up on what happens in the later episodes, will know how that goes down, but we won't say anything more for the sake of the dub-only viewers. And I guess one other detail to bring up is a small detail, but it's a very nice detail all the same. This was the episode where Beerus took a chance to, in this episode, Beerus took the chance to compliment Gohan. He praised Gohan for his efforts throughout the Tournament of Power, and although he calls Gohan the son of Goku at first, he quickly decides to call Gohan by his actual name. So I thought that was pretty heartwarming. And of course, Gohan was very polite too. He was very respectful to Universe 7's destroyer and was very gracious about the praise that Universe 7's destroyer gave him. So it was a small moment, but I thought it was pretty heartwarming to see Beerus showing that he's grown fond of the Z fighters, even though Beerus tries to act otherwise, but he really has grown to he's grown fond of the Z fighters, and I thought that was pretty heartwarming. So it was a small scene, not the biggest detail of the episode, but it was still a nice scene all the same. But otherwise, I would say that's it for this episode. So like I said, this episode gives Top the spotlight. We do get to see how we get a better idea of what it's like for the process of choosing a successor destroyer if anything happens to the previous destroyer or the current destroyer, and we do get a little insight about the training to become a destroyer, even if we didn't get to see any flashbacks, but we do get to see a mortal who actually is interested in the position of who's interested in taking on the position of a destroyer. So yes, Top is an example of a contrast with Goku and Vegeta, who don't really have any interest with becoming a destroyer, but Top, on the other hand, is interested in taking that position. But we also see how, by embracing the powers of a destroyer, Top has also thrown away his beliefs in justice. And it probably didn't help that Frieza kept mocking Top. And yeah, while Top was kind of obnoxious himself and he acted like an ungrateful jerk earlier throughout the saga, it's still not hard to kind of feel bad for Top after the way Frieza mocked him, and it was pretty cathartic to see Frieza pay the consequences for his arrogance and for mocking Top. And otherwise, so we'll get to see how they're going to deal with Top now that he has the powers of a destroyer in a later episode of the saga. But this episode does establish that Top is not going to be easy to defeat, especially now that he's become more powerful. But otherwise, I would say that's it for this episode. So as of this video, we've now discussed the Funimation dub of episode 125 of Dragon Ball Super on this channel. Take care, and until next time.